So it's about 7 in the morning. We're gonna be heading over to the squash cage because that's something you guys been asking a lot about, how the squash cage is coming along, how we hand pollinating. Well, again, it's about 7 in the morning, so we have a very short window in order to get those squash pollinated. So you got your stigma and your anthers are only good for a couple of hours. So right here, I'm over here by my Armenian cucumbers. And what we're looking for here also is any sign of our powdery mildew. So we're gonna be spraying this with our liquid whey this morning, which is our prevention. We're not talking about getting powdery mildew and then having to respond afterwards. We're talking about preventing powdery mildew. And I like to do my gardening just a little bit different. I like to succession plant so everything doesn't go in at the same time, because I don't want to be trying to harvest everything at one time, and that becomes a job within itself. So as you can see, no powdery mildew. And I'm gonna show you guys how I'm doing this with our spoiled milk or our liquid whey, as you hear me talk about so often. We'll go over here, and right here we have our butternut squash, and the same thing, no powdery mildew. Beautiful leaves all over. It's got some male flowers here. And again, we only have a short window when we're dealing with our male flowers. And over here, the bees are working, doing their job, so we don't have to worry about that. I like going up at the top and being able to look. And when the sun's shining out here, you can actually see through the plant, so you can see if you got any leaf-footed bugs or any type of insects that are crawling on. But I just wanted to give you guys a really good look at what our squash and our cucumbers are looking like, and look at the bees are doing their job. So we're gonna walk over here to our squash cage, and we're gonna be hand pollinating using our fine-tooth paintbrush. Just a fine-tooth paintbrush. That's all we're gonna be needing. We've been out here last night. We know which flowers need to be pollinated this morning. So as you can see right here, she is humongous. This is a Black Beauty zucchini. So if anything that I've done wrong with this, I didn't account for them growing as well as they're growing in this space right here. This is a massive size zucchini plant right here, and she is ready to be pollinated. So we got one of our male flowers open right here, and we know this wasn't open yesterday, so we should have some good viable pollen in there, and we're gonna be removing that from the anthers. We're gonna be pollinating those through the stigmas on the females. And then we're gonna go back, we're gonna do some pruning. So even though we're growing this up vertically, she is still taking over this area. So we wanna make sure that we keep the airflow going, and we have this small window of opportunity for pollination. I came out a little later in the day, I hand pollinated, took 2 of my male flowers, and she still did not get pollinated. So that's not gonna be a good viable squash. One of the ways that I've always noticed that the pollination looks pretty good when they start to swell towards the tip. You get a little swelling towards the tip. You can see how it's a little elongated right here, but the tip has a little swell on it. Same thing over here. A little elongated, but then the tip has a little swell right there. That's showing good pollination. So we want to take the pollen from the anther, which is the male reproductive part. We want this paintbrush to be saturated with that pollen. Pull that out. See if we can get that to focus so you can see. You see all that pollen on there? Oh yeah, got quite a bit. And then we want to come over here for the female. And you can see how different that looks down towards the inside. And we want to literally paint that pollen over the stigma. So one of the only negatives about having this squash cage is that you have to come out and you have to be vigilant on the hand pollination. If not, you're going to lose that little short window that you have, because again, you only have maybe 2-3 hours before these flowers are no longer viable. You can't come back to them tomorrow. You can't come back to them a couple hours later. If you don't get them this morning, you just won't have any squash. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up going ahead and removing this one because she did not get pollinated. We know this one's good. Just took care of that one. And then we turn over here. This is our Georgia candy roaster right here. She's looking really nice. But again, we're going to be spraying this with our liquid whey this morning. I've heard many say that there is no lactic acid bacteria in pasteurized milk. Yes and no. When you pasteurize the milk, that is not a scientific laboratory extraction. So we're talking about an industry standard to where, yes, it removes up 99.9999% of the bacteria when it's pasteurized, but what we are looking for are the most dominant strains of our lactic acid bacteria, and they will survive through that heat process. They're mesophilic. You can see our liquid whey right here in the middle. That's what we're extracting. When you allow this to spoil in the refrigerator, it's a totally different process. You're going to get a different type of bacteria that's going to cause spoilage. But what we're here doing is we're lowering the pH by allowing this to sit out on the counter at 75 to 85 degrees. You might want to sit it in your garage or anywhere, but you want that 75 to 85 degrees, because what's that going to do? You're going to wake up those dominant strains of the lactic acid bacteria. Even that little point percentage that's still left over from pasteurization, you're going to have the most dominant lactic acid bacteria left over. That's what we want to culture out of this. And one of the ways that we know that lactic acid bacteria is working is because we're going to drop the pH. So the goal of the day is to prevent powdery mildew. Not to stop powdery mildew, but to prevent it. Competitive seclusion, that's going to be the word that we're talking about. Competitive seclusion, that's all we're doing here. And we're doing against conventional wisdom in saying we should not spray our plants during the sunlight. And you can see what I'm doing right here. You can see that sun shining. And that's all we're doing. And you see how everything in here looks all nice and wet, but that sun beaming down on it, that's going to activate those lactoferrins in here, and that is what's going to put that blanket coating across all these plants, and we're going to eliminate that powdery mildew from ever even starting to happen. We're going to be getting a little dinner for tonight. We're going to remove that one that we know didn't get pollinated. You can see how it's uneven, how it's small at the top, and it's soft there. So we didn't do a good job of pollinating this one. So we'll sit that down there for now. This one's solid. You can tell by the texture of it. All of these, that's what we want to look for, is the texture. And we're going to go ahead and get this monster right here off. It's going to be dinner tonight. So I'm going to go up in here, push it. Here we go. Oh yeah, nice and beautiful Black Beauty squash. So we're gonna sit that there. We're gonna take the other one off also. Could be on there for another day. So we're gonna take this off. This is how we really want them, in that 8 to 12 inches, nice and slender like that. All right, so just gonna come out of here. It's gonna be dinner for tonight. I wouldn't say that's bad for a meal for the day. So we're growing out the box over here.